If I had $1 for every time my parents said, "You'll never survive without us," I wouldn't have needed a mortgage. Hell, I'd be paying off other people's mortgages for fun. My name's Noah, and I grew up in a house where independence was treated like a phase, something embarrassing you grew out of, like aim O'Hare or that one summer I wanted to be a magician. My mom, Linda, was the kind of woman who labeled leftovers with expiration dates and still checked them daily. Control was her love language. My dad, Gary, had a knack for tough love, mostly the tough part. If I succeeded at something, his first instinct was to find a way to make it sound like I got lucky. I wasn't the golden child. That was Mandy, my older sister, favorite of the universe, and recipient of 5 separate, just because spa days in 1 year. Mandy could crash her car into the garage and Mom would say, "She's just tired, poor thing." I once forgot to vacuum the hallway and got a week-long silent treatment and a laminated list of chores for character building. So no, I didn't tell them when I bought my first house. Because last time I told them something good happened to me? Dad said, "Are you sure that's wise?" And Mom followed it with, "Just promise us you won't make any impulsive decisions. Like that ugly leather couch you bought." The couch was fine. Still is. It reclines. I started working in HVAC after high school. College wasn't an option, not because I didn't get in, but because I didn't want to be in debt until I was 60 just to learn from someone who's never used a socket wrench. Instead, I busted my tail with Franklin Air and Heat. Long hours, summers that felt like I was walking inside a toaster, and more attic raccoons than I'll ever talk about. But it paid off. I saved every cent. No vacations, no takeout, no $7 lattes, just pure, boring discipline. I rented a place with peeling linoleum and no real insulation, and slowly, month by month, the dream got closer. By the time I was 26, I had enough for a down payment. Not a mansion. Not beachfront. Just a little 2-bedroom ranch near the edge of town with a half-decent yard, a garage I could turn into a workshop, and one critical feature, a front door that only I had the key to. And that was going to stay that way. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my coworkers, not my friends, and definitely not my parents. They thought I was still in my old rental, the one with the crooked mailbox and a smell that never left the carpet. And I let them believe it. Because the truth? I was finally breathing. Not just financially, but emotionally. I painted the walls whatever shade I wanted. Put up floating shelves without getting a lecture about how screws leave scars. I even danced in the empty living room one night like a weirdo, just me, a paint roller, and Marvin Gaye blasting through an old Bluetooth speaker. I hadn't felt that free since, ever. 3 weeks into living there, I got my rhythm. Work during the day, DIY projects in the evening. I replaced faucets, fixed a leaky gutter, recaulked the windows. I was finally building my space. But then something weird happened. It started small, subtle, even. I came home one Tuesday and the rug by the back door shifted. Nothing dramatic. Just a little crooked. I chalked it up to memory. Or the wind. Or ghosts, which at that point, honestly felt like the most rational answer. Then it happened again. The sponge in the kitchen sink was on the other side of the faucet. And I knew, for a fact, I always put it on the right. Always. Still, I tried to be logical. Maybe I bumped it. Maybe I was just tired. But then came the spoon. A long-handled iced tea spoon sitting in the dish rack, one I didn't own. I stared at it like it had personally insulted me. I don't even drink iced tea. It looked exactly like the set my mom had. She used to call them classy utensils, like we were royalty sipping beverages on a veranda. I hadn't seen one of those since I moved out. I stood there in my kitchen for a good 5 minutes. Just processing. That's when the itch started in the back of my brain. Was someone getting in? I checked the doors. Still locked. Checked the windows, nothing broken. No sign of a break-in. But now I had a pit in my stomach the size of Indiana. I didn't panic. I went to Home Depot the next day and bought 2 new deadbolts. Changed every lock that night. And still, I told no one. Especially not my parents. But the feeling? It didn't go away. In fact, it only got stronger. I didn't sleep well after finding that spoon. I lay there, wide awake, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. Maybe a previous owner had a hidden key? Maybe a neighbor slipped in? I even Googled phantom spoon incidents at 2 a.m. like that was a normal thing. But deep down I knew. I knew who it was. It was Mom and Dad. Of course it was. They'd pulled stuff like this before. When I was 22 and moved into my first apartment, my mom just happened to be in the neighborhood every single Sunday for 2 months straight. I eventually found out she made a copy of my key from the landlord when I was at work, told him she was my emergency contact, and convinced him with a pie. A pie. When I confronted her back then, she clutched her pearls like I'd accused her of grand theft auto. "I birthed you, Noah," she said. "If I can't walk into my own son's home without permission, what does that say about our relationship?" So yeah, finding that spoon wasn't a ghost. It was my mother. But this time, I had changed the locks. Bought a camera doorbell too. I wasn't playing around. The quiet peace of this home was mine, and I wasn't about to let it slip away again. A few days passed without incident. I figured maybe the new locks spooked them. Maybe they got the hint. Then came Saturday. I had a job that morning, installing a unit for a retired couple across town. Took longer than expected because the guy kept offering me lemonade every 20 minutes, and his wife wanted to show me photos of her grandkids in matching Halloween costumes. I smiled through all of it. But by the time I turned onto my street, I was exhausted. All I wanted was to shower, order some takeout, and binge something stupid on Netflix. Instead, I saw them. Parked right in my driveway like they owned the place. My dad's silver truck was tilted half over the grass, and Mom's minivan, complete with her "Live, Laugh, Love" bumper sticker, blocked the mailbox. I froze. They weren't knocking. They were just standing there, staring at the front door. Dad had his hands on his hips. Mom was holding her phone, tapping furiously. She looked annoyed, like the house had dared to offend her personally. I killed the engine and sat there. Heart thudding. For a second, I debated reversing out. Pretend I didn't see them. Claim I had a flat tire. Flee to Canada. But instead I took a breath. And got out. As soon as my foot hit the pavement, Mom's head snapped toward me like a hawk spotting a mouse. "Noah!" she said too brightly. "Oh, there you are! We were just stopping by." Dad gave a single nod, like I was an employee late to a meeting. I looked at them. Then at the house. Then back at them. "Stopping by?" I echoed. "You didn't know I lived here?" "Oh," Mom said quickly. "We were just in the area. We drove past and saw your work truck last week. Thought it looked familiar." "Sure, January." I walked slowly toward them, keeping my voice even. "Why are you standing at my door?" "Well," Dad said, clearing his throat, "we thought we'd surprise you. You've been so busy lately. We wanted to check in. Your mother baked banana bread." I glanced down. She was indeed holding a full-wrap loaf like it was a peace treaty. "We figured we'd wait inside," Dad added. "But your key doesn't seem to be working." I stopped in my tracks. There it was. He said it so casually. Like having a key to a house I never gave them access to was perfectly normal. I blinked. "What key?" Dad frowned. "The one from your old place. Your mom said it looked like the same model of lock." Mom shrugged, all innocent. "We didn't think it'd hurt to try." "Try breaking into my house?" "Don't be dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's not like we broke anything." "Not yet, I thought." I exhaled through my nose. The old me would have caved right then. Opened the door. Let them in. Pretended it was fine. Laughed it off like a good little doormat. But I wasn't that guy anymore. So I said, "You need to leave." Mom blinked. "What?" "You heard me. This isn't a social drop-in. You don't have a key. You're not invited. You need to leave. Dad looked like I slapped him with the banana bread. Noah, don't be ridiculous. We're family. Exactly. And family doesn't sneak into your house when you're not around. I brought you bread, Mom said again, as if that somehow absolved everything. I'll leave it on the porch, I replied calmly. You can pick it up when you're invited. Which is, not today. They stared at me in stunned silence. Then Mom's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, and then, I kid you not, looked me dead in the eye and said, We might come back later, when you're calmer. That's when she turned to Dad and whispered something. And then he smirked. They weren't done. And I knew, in that exact moment, whatever line had been drawn in their heads, they had just erased it. Sunday was quiet. Too quiet. I spent most of it pretending to relax, grilled a couple burgers, watched a game, even tried to take a nap. But there was this itch under my skin the whole time. Like when you know your phone's about to ring before it does. I kept glancing out the window like they'd pop out from the bushes. They didn't. But that didn't mean they were done. Monday, I installed a motion sensor camera over the garage and synced it to my phone. I'd already put up a doorbell cam the week before the spoon incident, because, again, not my first rodeo with these people. But now I had coverage of the whole front. That evening, I was mid-shower when my phone buzzed twice from the bathroom counter. Motion alert. My stomach clenched. I yanked the towel around me, dripping across the tiles like a cartoon burglar, and checked the app. And there they were. Both of them. Mom and Dad. Back in my driveway like it was a timeshare they forgot they didn't own. I watched on the live feed as Mom got out of the car holding something that looked suspiciously like a casserole dish. Dad had a manila envelope under one arm. Didn't we just do this? I muttered. They walked up to the door, not even pretending to knock. Straight to the handle. Dad pulled out the key. The same one from before. He tried it again. Still didn't work. Shocker. From my tiny speaker I heard Mom say, Well, if he won't open up, maybe someone else will. Dad muttered something, then pulled out his phone. A few minutes later, a white van pulled into view. No logo. Just Locksmith vibes. I stared. They actually called a locksmith. I threw on clothes faster than I ever have in my life, grabbed my keys, and drove back home like I was in a fast and furious spin-off called Family Boundaries. Final warning. By the time I got there, the locksmith had already stepped out of his van and was walking toward my parents, holding a clipboard. I parked across the street and just watched for a second. Mom was doing her fake sweet voice. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding, she said to the guy. We just lost access to the home. Uh-huh, the locksmith replied, not buying it. Dad handed him the envelope, probably something vaguely looking like proof of residence. Or a fake lease printed off the internet. Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them. That's when I crossed the street. Hey! I called out. My voice echoed a bit more than expected. Everyone turned. Mom's face fell. Dad blinked like I'd materialized out of thin air. Funny seeing you here, I said flatly. The locksmith looked between us. You the homeowner? I nodded. Yes, sir. Got ID and the title in my glove box if you want to see it. Dad cleared his throat. Noah, we were just trying to force your way into my house. Again. Don't be dramatic. Is that your new motto? The locksmith stepped back a little, glancing at the key Dad was still awkwardly holding. So. Just to clarify. You don't live here? No, I said. They don't. They've never lived here. They've never paid for a single thing here. They weren't invited. They weren't given a key. And they're not on any document. But I do have footage of them trying to open the door. Twice. The guy turned to my parents, visibly uncomfortable. Yeah. I can't help you then. Dad tried to push forward. You don't understand. This is our son. This is a family matter. Locksmith dude shrugged. Yeah, and I'm not getting sued because you two can't respect a boundary. He turned and walked back toward his van. I swear I saw the smallest smile tug at the corner of his mouth. Mom looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. You changed the locks? She hissed at me. You tried to enter without permission. I shot back. So yeah? I did. We were just worried about you, she said, her voice cracking. You've been distant. Gee, I wonder why. Dad took a step closer, but I held up a hand. No more surprise visits. No more spare keys. No more pretending this is normal. If you want to see me, call. Like adults. Mom tried to hand me the casserole dish. I didn't take it. Dad opened his mouth and closed it again. They left without another word. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. After the locksmith walked off and my parents left with their casserole dish and bruised egos, I stood in the doorway of my house, for a long time. Half waiting for them to turn around. Half expecting them to pull one last stunt. But they didn't. They actually left. And for the first time in weeks, it was quiet again. I should have known better. Because the next morning, the text messages started. First from Mom. We were only trying to help. Sorry if it came off aggressive. Can we talk? Then another 2 hours later. I just want to see you more often. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. Please don't freeze us out. Then a photo of the banana bread. Just a photo. Sitting on their kitchen counter. Like it was on house arrest. By noon, Dad chimed in with his usual subtlety. You didn't need to embarrass us like that. That locksmith guy was just doing his job. No need to turn everything into a show. No apology. Just a passive-aggressive jab wrapped in a sentence. Classic. I didn't reply. Not to any of it. I left the messages on read. Because what was I supposed to say? Sorry for protecting my property and not rolling out the red carpet for your unauthorized entry attempt. Nah. I went to work that afternoon like usual. Fixed a busted heat pump in someone's crawlspace and tried not to think about my phone vibrating in my pocket every half hour. When I got home that night, something felt off. Again. Not in a someone broken way. But in a someone's about to way. And I was right. Because sitting on my front porch bench was a takeout bag from that cafe my mom always loved. Inside? A slice of lemon cake. A handwritten note on pink stationery. Thought you'd like this. You used to love lemon cake. We miss you. Mom Yellow Heart. I stood there in the doorway, bag in hand, like I'd just found a dead fish wrapped in a love letter. It was textbook emotional sabotage. No actual apology. No acknowledgement of the boundary they crossed. Just sugar, nostalgia, and guilt. And then, 2 days later, right as I thought the weird piece might hold, Mandy showed up. Of course she did. She was the golden child, the favorite, the designated family diplomat. Every family has one, the one who never gets their hands dirty but always swoops in to smooth things over, while conveniently staying on the pedestal. I was in the middle of unclogging a sink in the garage when I heard a soft knock. Not the firm, obnoxious parent knock. No. This one was delicate. Soft. Apology-coded. I opened the door and there she was. Mandy Barker. Perfect hair, perfect coat, and that. I'm trying to be understanding but also better than you. Smile she'd perfected since we were kids. Noah, she said like she was announcing the weather. Mandy, I replied, drying my hands on my jeans. I was just in the neighborhood. No one is ever just in the neighborhood out here. She laughed politely. There. There was a beat of silence. Then she held up a small box. Mom asked me to drop this off. She said it's yours. I took it. It was a small wooden key holder. One I'd made in shop class back in high school. Dad used to keep it in the hallway. I'd forgotten it even existed. She said it belongs in your house now, Mandy added. I looked at it for a long second, then back at her. She could have mailed it. She wanted it to be more personal. Right. Just like copying my key was personal. Her face twitched, a tiny flicker of guilt. They didn't mean harm, she said softly. They just don't know how to let go. I leaned against the doorframe. And that's supposed to be my problem? No, she admitted. But maybe if you just invited them over once, they wouldn't feel the need to barge in. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Out loud. Mandy, you don't ask burglars to dinner just because they keep showing up. She winced. Okay, maybe not the best metaphor. No, it's perfect. Because that's what this is. They want access, not connection. They want control, not conversation. She was quiet for a beat. Then said, You've changed. Thanks, I said, smiling for real this time. That's the point. I kept that key holder Mandy brought. Not because it meant anything, but because it looked good in the trash can. Don't worry, I took a photo first. That's the thing they never understood. They thought I'd moved out to rebel. To prove a point. What they never considered was that I moved out so I could finally breathe, without someone checking if I was doing it right. After Mandy left, things went quiet again. No more visits. No more lemon cake. No more guilt loaf disguised as reconciliation. I even started to let myself enjoy the house again. I bought a rug for the living room. Upgraded my drill set. Built a shelf in the garage just for snacks and soda, peak adulthood. But then, one Thursday afternoon, I got a notification from Facebook. Mom tagged you in a post. Ah. The digital trapdoor. I clicked it. Big mistake. It was a throwback collage. Photos of me as a kid. Holding a wrench next to Dad. Covered in paint next to Mom. One from high school graduation. A blurry one from my HVAC certification ceremony. And, at the end, a caption. So proud of the young man our son's become. He bought a beautiful home with hard work and grit, raised right. Blue Heart House, we're blessed to have played a part in the journey. I stared at the screen. Then blinked. Then reread it. We're blessed to have played a part. I didn't even tell them about the house. They found out by stalking my work truck and making duplicate keys like criminals on a sitcom. But now, according to Facebook, they were co-authors of my life story, complete with emoji punctuation. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I opened Instagram and snapped a photo of my front door. Captioned it simply. Bought my first house on my own. No co-signers. No financial help. No surprise visitors. Just me, a drill, and a whole lot of patience. Feels good to have something that's finally mine, and mine alone. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't name names. But I didn't have to. Within 10 minutes, the family group chat was on fire. Mandy. Really? Mom. You could have just talked to us. Dad. That was petty, Noah. And Cheryl. I'm staying out of this. Cousin Eli, like the post. Mom again. After everything we've done for you. Everything they've done? Like what? Taught me to fear success because it came with strings? Made me feel guilty for not needing them every 5 minutes? I ignored them. Which only made it worse. The texts rolled in like a flood of misplaced emotion. We raised you better than this. You used to be kind. What happened to the boy who made us breakfast on Mother's Day? That boy grew up and got a mortgage, Karen. By Saturday, Mandy texted again. Can we meet for coffee? Just to talk. I said no. She asked why. I told her the truth. Because I've said everything I need to say. The problem isn't that I don't communicate, it's that none of you listen. She left me on read. 2 hours later, Mom texted. You've made your point. We won't bother you again. And I swear I almost believed her. Until Monday. When the neighbor across the street sent me a message. Hey, was just making sure everything's okay. Your folks were here again today. They parked in your driveway. Tried to look through the window. Looked upset. Of course they did. Because when they said they wouldn't bother me again, they really meant, until we think of a new strategy. I opened my phone. Opened the security app. Downloaded the clearest clip of them standing outside my house. And made a decision. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I was going to make it official. Turns out, when your parents act like unwanted guests on your property, there's a name for that. Trespassing. Now, I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I didn't want a viral court case or to end up on Judge Judy with my mom sobbing about lemon cake and lost connections. But I also wasn't going to wait until I came home and found them in my kitchen rearranging the silverware again. So, the next morning, I took a personal day. I went downtown and walked into a law office that looked like it charged $1,000 just to breathe the air. The receptionist had cheekbones sharp enough to file a cease and desist themselves. When I met with the attorney, Ms. Dwyer, I laid it all out: the key, the attempted entry, the locksmith, the porch drop-offs, the uninvited surveillance window stares, the casserole. All of it. She didn't blink once. Do you have proof of any of this? I opened my phone, pulled up the security footage. Clips of them trying the key. Their conversation with the locksmith. The latest video of them peeking through my windows like bargain bin ghosts. Ms. Dwyer smiled politely, in that terrifying lawyer way, and said, "We can absolutely make this stop." 2 days later, I had a formal no trespass order in my hands. It wasn't a restraining order, nothing dramatic. Just a quiet, legal, "Get off my property and don't come back unless I say so" document. One for each parent, signed and notarized. I had copies mailed. But more importantly, I taped one to the inside of my front window, right above the "Smile, you're on camera" sticker. Petty? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. 3 days passed. No knock. No lemon cake. No casseroles. Just blessed, eerie, golden silence. Until the voicemail. I recognized the number. Dad's? I'd ignored the previous dozen missed calls, but this one came with a transcribed preview. "You're not serious, are you?" I played it. "Noah. Your mother's upset. We just can't believe you'd go this far. A legal order? For your own parents? What does that say about the way you were raised? What happened to respect? What happened to family? You can't erase us, son. We're not some bad habit you can cut off. This is real life. Blood is blood. Ah, the classic. Blood is thicker than boundaries. Speech. I saved the voicemail. Didn't respond. But I did forward it to Ms. Dwyer, just to have it on file. Then I got another surprise. Mandy called. Not texted. Not voice note. She called. Which she never does unless someone died or she wants to borrow my truck. I let it ring. Then, curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up. "Noah," she said. "No hi, no how are you?" Just my name, like it was a warning. "You lawyered up?" "Yep." "You served Mom and Dad a trespass order?" "Yep." "You taped it to the window?" "Also yep." I could hear her exhale through her nose. "You know they're devastated." "I bet they are. They feel like you don't love them anymore. They've confused being loved with being allowed to do whatever they want." Big difference. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Dad's been talking about rewriting the will. Let me guess, leaving me out?" Silence. I actually smiled. "Well," I said, "good thing I bought my house with my own money, huh?" "You really don't care?" she asked. I thought about it. And realized something wild. I didn't. Not even a little. "You know what I care about," I said. "Getting through a weekend without someone peeking through my window, holding banana bread like it's a hostage. That's what I care about." She sighed again, but softer this time. "Noah, you know you've changed, right?" "I hope so." It had been 3 weeks since I taped that no trespass order to the window. And you know what? It was quiet. Peaceful. Like that kind of silence you don't notice at first, but slowly starts to feel like freedom. I had full weekends with no awkward knocks. No guilt texts. No lemon-flavored bribery. Just me, my power tools, and whatever dumb reality show I picked for the week. Even the family group chat died down. Mom stopped sending photo collages with cryptic captions like, "Miss the way things used to be, broken heart." Dad stopped leaving voicemails where he sounded like a 1950s sitcom dad kicked off his own porch. Mandy, shockingly, kept her word and stayed out of it. I thought maybe, It was over. And then, the call came. It was a random Tuesday. I was between service calls, eating a gas station sandwich in my truck, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I picked up. Hello, is this Mr. Noah Barker? Yeah? This is Craig from Hope and Home Realty. I'm calling about the listing at 230 Hickory Lane. I blinked. That was my address. I didn't list anything. There was a pause. Then Craig cleared his throat. Oh, I see. Well, someone claiming to be the homeowner reached out to begin the valuation process. They said the house might be going up for sale and asked for a walkthrough. I was just following up. My brain glitched. They what now? He read off the contact name. Edward Barker. My dad. I laughed. I actually laughed, right into the phone. Craig was quiet. I'm so sorry, I said between breaths. That's not happening. My dad doesn't live here. Never has. I bought this house myself. I have the deed, the mortgage, the keys, all of it. He has no authority. Ah. That's good to know, Craig said slowly, like I just saved him from a lawsuit. I'll cancel the file. Sorry for the mix-up. No problem, I said. And hey, if he tries that again, just point him toward the security footage. The one where he tries to break in with a locksmith. Craig laughed. Will do. I hung up. Then stared at my dashboard for a full minute. It wasn't about the house. It was about control. They'd lost every other way to get in, literally and emotionally, so now they were trying to plant themselves in the paperwork. Fake a sale. Insert themselves back into a story they were no longer part of. I walked back inside. Opened my laptop. And drafted a letter. It was polite. Short. Just a reminder that any attempt to interfere with my property, impersonate ownership, or engage third parties without consent would result in legal action. I sent it to my parents. And CC'd Mandy, for fun. 2 hours later, Dad called. I didn't answer. The voicemail was just one sentence. I don't even recognize you anymore. And you know what? Good. A week later, I hosted a barbecue. Just friends. No family. We ate ribs off paper plates, laughed until the neighbors complained, and christened my tiny backyard deck with the kind of joy that didn't need anyone's approval. Right before sunset, someone asked, "So your parents ever come by anymore?" I smiled, gestured to the window, where the trespass order still sat, now perfectly framed beneath a welcome sign I bought ironically. Not since they tried to sell it out from under me. Everyone laughed. And me? I finally exhaled. Because this house? This piece? This version of my life? It was mine. Every square inch.